Joey Contreras is a musical theater and pop songwriter. An alum of the NYU Graduate Musical Theater Writing Program, his achievements include finalist status for the Jonathan Larson Grant. His most recent work, In Pieces, takes both musical theater and pop music from across Joey's career and crafts it into a song cycle that examines the, quote, romantic journeys of 8 individuals as they share, ponder, and look back on the chosen paths and partners along the way. Slated for a feature film in the upcoming months, this emotional and thought-provoking piece, see what I did there, is available for streaming in the form of a highlights album right now. Welcome to the show, Joey.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you
for
so
coming.
much for being here. She was very proud of that pun, just so you know.
Yeah, I wrote
I
peace, and then
it started to glow, and you were like, "Here we go. This moment has been created." Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
I like it.
I've
been
very
using
exciting.
a lot of them myself as well. So
Great.
So
Yeah.
as Lou mentioned, In Pieces is sort of a combination of show tunes, pop music, includes really a wide variety of genres. What were your, just as a composer, your greatest musical influences in both of those realms?
I grew up listening to a lot of pop music. So like at the very early age, I was listening to a lot of Michael Jackson, Madonna, and Janet Jackson. But then I was very much a TRL kid. So I like early 2000s pop music. Britney Spears is my queen kind of guy. So Max Martin is a really famous songwriter in the pop scene. And so he's always been a huge influence of mine. But then I also grew up in theater. So I just have been doing a lot of musical theater when I was younger, but then when I went to a musical theater program for college, and Jason Robert Brown was king, and so I've definitely been influenced by him, and I also am a big Sondheim guy. So yeah.
Yeah, that's all super great. Actually, when I was listening to Like You Don't Miss Me, I was definitely getting some Britney vibes. That's something that
Hey,
I wrote down from. Yeah, so
that's good. That's good. I'm glad you got that vibe.
oh no. I
Yeah, you're back now. You were frozen, but you're back.
did I freeze it all there?
No, only a little bit, but you're good.
Just a
Oh
little.
no, I'm unstable.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, but yeah, great vibes all around. Love Britney.
Thank you.
Yeah. But we were also noticing, just kind of looking at your body of work, that you often write about relationships, and that's a subject that you come back to. So what draws you to writing about that?
Yeah, I have always written my songs from a very personal place. So a lot of In Pieces and a lot of my music in general tends to come from um a kind of almost like diaristic place, a place of like writing ripped stories ripped from my diary and my journal. And that was always the outlet for me growing up, was writing songs and writing out my emotions. And then when I went to school for theater and I was around a lot of amazing, actors and talent, it just started to morph a little bit more into these kind of pop songs, or just kind of songs in my life, kind of taking on a new theatrical place. And that's kind of how I started to morph into more of this contemporary musical theater and pop influenced writer. But yeah, a lot of it is always inspired by my relationships and the boys that come into my life and that have left my life.
No, I understand that. It's always a great place to write from. The person, it's what feels true and authentic, and they always say write what you know. So, and it works very well. In Pieces is, as we mentioned, sort of a piecing together of a bunch of music in your catalog. Just take us through that crafting process and the unique challenges it presents to go through your whole catalog and just try to pick out a few that will work in this cycle.
Sure. So all of these songs have been songs that have come out, have been released on previous albums of mine, or were written for the show. But these songs have been written over the last 13 years, and which is kind of wild to say. But I think what's interesting about the show is that it really does track those years in which they were written. Those years, those coming of age years. A lot of these songs were written when I was, 18 to 30, basically. And during that time, you are getting to know yourself. You're starting to go on journeys with a whole bunch of different people that have shaped you, and who have given you lessons to learn from. And I think, I didn't write these songs originally with the idea of putting them in a song cycle, and it was something that came after the fact. But as we were crafting it and putting the set list together and kind of figuring out, how do these songs connect, how do they create a larger narrative, how do they tell a bigger story of people, I think it really kind of illuminated how there is really a journey that is sort of embedded when you put these songs together and telling a story, and kind of reflecting and looking back, and then also finding a joy and acceptance of those lessons along the way.
Yeah. And I noticed that you've shared a lot of, or not a lot, but a handful of the lessons you've learned and from specific songs, just telling the stories of the songs on your YouTube channel. I did do a deep dive stalk of your YouTube channel in preparation for this interview.
Well done. Thank you.
Yes. And yeah, you have a little playlist of, the stories behind certain songs. So for anyone listening along, there's one for Love Me Not. There's one for Another New York Love Story. And I just kind of wanted to ask about a song that I really liked, Singing the Same Line, if you might mind sharing the story behind that one for us as well on the pod.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I'm glad that you like that one. That's actually the newest song that was written for In Pieces. I wrote that last year.
Oh, wow.
It was not, yeah, it wasn't a part of the original presentation that happened at Lincoln Center back in 2017. And it wasn't just a little before I go into Singing the Same Line. The show itself, was kind of placed on the back burner for a couple of years as I was turning my attention to other shows. And it wasn't until this 2020 that it started to pick up some new traction and some new interest. And so during that time, I also hadn't, the pandemic, and I was like, we all were sort of like, what the heck is going on? And I kind of was uninspired, and I was like finding myself all over the place, like as far as like songwriting goes. And Singing the Same Line kind of came out of me about a couple months into the pandemic, where I just sort of found the joy of storytelling again, and finding a place of expression that I hadn't been able to kind of lock into and channel for a while. And the song itself, a lot of people have, what I do like about when I write music is I do like people being able to take what they will from it and be able to infuse it with their own kind of storyline, their own narrative, and find their own kind of interpretation within it. But it is interesting, the song itself has actually gotten a little bit more of a is not, I won't say misinterpreted, but people have likened it to being a little bit more about dealing with someone who's dealing with addiction. And it actually is a little bit lighter than that for me. When I wrote it, it was more so coming from again, very relationship forward, but dealing with this person in your group of friends' life who is so charismatic and so lovely, and everybody is constantly kind of finding themselves romantically entangled with him at times, but he's never really actually able to give them anything more. And so it really, the song itself really kind of is almost like directly lifted from conversations that I've had with my friends about someone, and how we all sort of roll our eyes about this one person, but yet we still want to be with him, and we're all friends, and we've all been with him, and it's sort of like, why are we all sitting in this room and singing the same line about this guy? Why? We know he's not right for us. We know he's not, he's got some stuff to figure out, and yet here we are. So I kind of imagined us all being in like a support group meeting and singing the same line. But then people have then thought it was more of a literal support group meeting. And if the song still connects with you in that way, which many people have written to me that it does, then that's wonderful and great. And that's the power of music. But yeah, that's sort of a little bit of the story behind singing the same line.
Yeah, I actually was more in the way that you wrote it, thinking about like all of this one person's exes are like sitting together in a room talking about like, why are we still
Exactly.
into this guy? Yeah, totally.
Exactly. Good. You got it, Lou. You got it.
I got it. Yeah, but I can totally see how that could be about addiction as well. That is the great thing about songs. They can speak to any number of things depending. So
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And going off of, you mentioned this was one of the most recent ones written. How much of this music, just wondering, was specifically written for the song cycle?
A lot of the songs that were written specifically for the song cycle are on the Highlights album that came out. So when I started putting this show together, I wrote You Never Know and Fork in the Road as sort of the musical glue and the motifs that sort of string it together a little bit more. And so those two were written for the show. I completed the song in Pieces for the show. And Pieces was actually written many, many years ago. And there are remnants of it that are from that original version of it, but then I really completed it and sort of rewrote it later on when I started crafting the show in Pieces. But yeah, then the other songs were all not previously released, but had been written in the past. It's like Me and Mr. Popularity and This Is Not Me, right. Those songs.
Right.
And Like You Don't Miss Me was actually a solo single of mine back in 2016. I had released it as a solo kind of pop song, and then it got reimagined as a trio for the show.
Yeah, that was a super fun one. So what went into the process of deciding to do a Highlights album? Because, you have all of this music, and then, I was kind of going back and forth like, oh, here's the track list, here's what made the album. Was it part of that being just wanting to share the new music, or what went into that decision process?
Yeah, this show kind of all of a sudden went full throttle for me in the last year. I was approached about, from a school that wanted to produce it, and so very quickly it was time to take it off the back burner and get it ready to be produced. And a lot of people, might think, oh, well, all these songs were already written and the sheet music was already out and everything. And that is true. But the show, it now that it's living as a full show isolated from those standalone songs, there is a lot of work that then gets put into place with just literally the tedious work of making a score and notating music and all that formatting and everything. So there was a lot of work to do all of a sudden very quickly. And while we were working on that, I started to see that this was a show that actually could just be producible and be licensable and be something that, people could do. And so, when we were living in this pandemic, we're still living in this pandemic of very bizarre times, and really everybody having to find ways to pivot, to create. And so I decided, why don't I it's kind of crazy every time I say it out loud. Why don't I re-record all 22 songs, so that there can be production tracks available for when a school or a theater wants to produce this show, and take away some of the additional work that they would need to do. They wouldn't have to hire a band, or they wouldn't have to, or they could. There's a version available where all the sheet music is written. They could do that. But if we wanted to make things appealing and licensable and easier for whatever kind of situation a theater or a school might be in. So my husband, who's also my sort of my music supervisor, my music director, the chief operating person of my brand, Brian Russell Carey, he's also a musician, so he plays strings, and we just started recording everything in our home studio, and then we got some of my other musician friends and band members to send me their drum stems and their guitar tracks and everything. We started piecing it all together in this remote situation, piecing it in pieces.
It's two now. That's two on the show.
There you go.
Now I just
take
have
a shot
to do one
when you yeah, take a shot when you hear a peace pun. And but yeah, so we just started piecing it all together. And then it was like, well, 10 of these songs actually haven't been released, so why don't we then make a highlights album, so that then for these people that want to produce it or want to know what In Pieces is, they can hear the whole show top to bottom. Because a majority of the songs are available on my previous albums, but there were songs that were not. And so then it was just like, let's make a fierce lineup of people and do that, and suddenly here we are. Yeah.
I've talked to some other artists in various genres, and a question that often comes up is, which song is your favorite? And it's like picking a favorite child. This is kind of a different version of that, because this is a highlights album. How did you decide which songs to include? There's some great ones that aren't on there, and I imagine that was an incredibly tough choice.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but which ones do you like that were not on the highlights album?
Oh, for me, I'm in this moment blanking on the name of it, but the recording of Natalie Weiss on your website page. Why can't I think of Young Kind of Love? That's it. Yeah, I loved that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, I love that too. I think because that had already been out as an album, it sort of was like, okay, well, this highlights album is sort of its own separate project. Yeah, that's why we do the playlist. We have the playlist on Spotify and Apple Music too. So yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And for me, I like Antonio Cipriano. He's everywhere in my life these days, so I appreciated Wild a lot. He's just popping up in all these different corners of my life.
Yes, Wild. I mean, Wild. I love Wild, and working with Antonio was so wonderful. He's such a great human being and a great artist, and so I love Wild.
Yeah. I lost my place in the thing. Okay. Oh, okay. I'll go here. We were mentioning your YouTube, and you have like a lot of videos from kind of the earlier like musical theater kind of era of YouTube, when a lot of writers were like putting out stuff, and like I'm thinking of like people like Joey Contreras and that whole kind of like cohort, I guess you could say. What are you seeing now as like the future of discovering young writers in and like getting more new work out there, like In Pieces?
I think everyone kind of sees that TikTok has become a very big tastemaker, an outlet for writers and creativity in general. I mean, I think it's unbelievable what people have done on TikTok. It's so cool, it's so fun, it's so inventive, and so I think TikTok is currently, and for a while will be, the future of sort of people finding their audience as writers. And I think that then the gatekeepers are going to, the gatekeepers already like people coming with built-in audiences. So, I think that's definitely going to be sort of a new route. Yeah.
And I guess I guess to address the not an elephant in the room, but you're in London right now, right this very second. Why are you there? And yeah, what are you doing there? What could you let all our lovely listeners know?
Yes, this exclusive. Yeah, so I'm so in pieces there was a filmed version that came out earlier this year that was separate from the album and the album's cast, but they both kind of came around the same time. And so it became this really wonderful way to introduce people to the show. They got the highlights album, and then they had this film a week later that had been released that really kind of showcased what the show is top to bottom, and how these characters are how they interact with each other, and how their storylines kind of ebb and flow, and get a little bit more of an idea of the full show. But it wasn't originally planned that way. It just sort of happened that way suddenly. And this production company had asked if they could produce a film, and they licensed the show, and they brought in these incredible West End stars and this amazing choreography. And it was a very splashy film, and it's really fantastic. And so we are actually now in London to adapt that film version back to the stage, and we're workshopping it right now to see how that lives on its feet. And I'm super excited because this so far, this show, I had my presentation back in 2017, but like I said, it went on the back burner. And so then I've been like developing this show very publicly suddenly with these, whether they be virtual productions that are happening across the country, or now this film. So this is the first time that I'm actually getting to workshop my show after it's already been everywhere else.
It's
Wow.
fantastic. A long but worthwhile road.
Yeah. It's very
Okay.
exciting.
I mean, I'm just curious with the development process, because you kind of are describing this whole journey of having a concert and then it kind of fading away and then coming back. If there was one thing that you could change about the development kind of process and producing and the way things are produced in the theater, what would it be?
I think we need more open-minded people who have power and can create pathways for writers and artists in general. I think that there is a very outdated, antiquated pipeline, and I am finding that we all, just as we are creative people with what's happening on the stage, we need to find people who are creative beyond the stage, so that we can see how to actually get these shows, these voices heard on bigger platforms. And yeah, I think it's no longer just kind of the out of town tryout or this grant or this development place, and then to off Broadway, then Broadway, or anything like that. So yeah, I think I'm excited and hopeful that the whole industry is opening their minds and trying to get a little bit more creative with things now that we've had this time.
Yeah, I agree completely, and I hope coming out of the shutdown, we get a lot more of different avenues and pathways, because there is just so much good work out there that deserves the development from many different avenues. So
Yeah, I think theater, is producing theater is a riskier endeavor, but I think that there are ways to mitigate that risk, and there are also ways to not make it so, to kind of like, I don't know, diversify it, and diversify what's happening. And so, and I I'm curious and I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So while we're talking about current things, anything else you'd like to promote to the people that you're working on presently?
Always, yes. I have more music coming out very soon that I'm excited about. You know, I am someone that likes to um stay active and stay writing and stay releasing stuff. So I have a really exciting single coming out soon that will be out. And then I also have a couple other shows that I'm working on right now. One is called Forget Me Not. And there have been some videos that have been released over the last year, kind of introducing the world of that show to the masses. And we're excited to see what that does next. We were going to be doing a lot of stuff this last year, so now things kind of been backed up as you know, as we know. And then I have another show called Heartbreakers in Hell that is going to have 2 productions later this year, and that's sort of this dark and sexy musical that's like a company meets a Lady Gaga concert.
Yes.
That sounds good to me.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
I'm on board with that one. I do love company and Lady Gaga. Who doesn't?
Exactly.
My 2 favorite things.
They really go well together. It's a lovely pairing.
God, I'd pay to see Patti LuPone singing Lady Gaga songs. Anyway, we'd like to move to our signature bit now, which is it's a smoother transition than last time. This is we do a little Broadway Would You Rather at the end of every episode. Ask you a couple questions. So the first is, would you rather be a newsie or a Mormon?
Do we mean like on the stage?
Yes,
or
on
like
the stage.
Well, I'd want to be a newsie. I'm yeah, I'd want to be a newsie.
Follow-up question, which newsie?
The Ryan Steele one.
Yeah. All right. We love that.
I'd love to be able to dance like that.
Totally. A more real life-ish question. Would you rather spend a night on the town with Dolly Levi or Reno Sweeney?
Oh God, I'm living for these questions. Oh gosh. You know what? Actually, Dolly. Yeah, I know. It's kind of weird. I am. This is a bad. Yeah, I'm just gonna say Dolly. Yeah.
Valid.
Yeah, I think I answered Dolly when we answered these for ourselves because she takes you out to a really nice dinner.
Yeah.
That was my reasoning. Like she's in with everyone and she'll take care of you. Like she'll pay for your stuff. Anyway.
I'm a foodie and I love a multi-course meal. I like to wine and dine. So that's exactly where my mind went.
Totally.
Absolutely. Barbara Streisand will provide. Would you rather compose the score of a movie adaptation musical or write the book of a jukebox musical?
Oh, the score of yeah. I'd rather write the score.
Very nice.
Cool. And now, this is our big, long sort of a question. Would you rather see as much live theater as you want for free, but never be able to listen to the music at home, or have unlimited access to archive recordings, cast albums, etc., but never be able to see live theater ever again?
Okay, so it's either see live theater for free, you said?
Yeah.
And never be able to listen to that music away from the stage?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or have unlimited access to all musical theater and never be able to see it on stage?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oof. Oh gosh. That's hard.
You're
That's a hard one. Oh no.
We had one guest just refuse to answer. So
I know
that's
this
an
is
option too.
What I want to say is probably really like not I'm just gonna say this for now. And we're going to say today, on whatever day this is, Joey Contreras in London said this, but that does not mean that he would always do this forever and always.
Sure.
I would say that I probably would see the live theater.
Yeah.
Me too.
I think we're in a pandemic world right now. We're missing that live element and being with people. I think that's totally understandable for
Absolutely.
Joey Contreras on June 10th at 10:06 a.m. So
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
Those
are fun. Those are fun questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We try to
We have fun
jazz it
putting
up.
them together.
We do. As a final cap on this conversation, I know you've talked about why you're in London for this show and a variety of avenues that this show can take. But do you have an ideal future of this story where you'd like to see In Pieces go?
Yeah, I really would love for In Pieces to have a nice commercial run. And I then would love for it to be picked up for a Netflix movie musical.
Ooh,
Nice.
That's what I want.
that would be fun. I would watch. Netflix, are you listening?
Yes.
Speak
Yes.
it
You
into
up?
existence.
You up, Netflix?
They're
Yeah.
always up. They're watching everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming. This was so fun.
Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me to your show. I really appreciate it.